Good afternoon and welcome. It is day 3 of Academy. Today we're going to be focusing on attribution, analytics, and AdWords. So for those who've been with us all week, yesterday's class was a little behind the schedule. So there's a few workshops we didn't get to do, which today's class is actually a shorter class. So I'm hoping to tie it all in. So we'll be doing a little bit unscripted today to make up for the workshops that we weren't able to do yesterday. So with that said, we have about 2 hours together. I still think today we'll probably get done a little bit earlier than 4 o'clock. So with that said, let's go ahead and begin. We always like to go over a few logistical items before we get started. Just real quick overview that all the materials for this course have been made to be up to date. We would ask that you do not reproduce or duplicate them. We do have a few course requirements today. One is that you're able to log into a call tracking metrics account. If you have 2 monitors, we would recommend using those so you can have one to have the presentation up on your screen and have the other one have your CTM account up. We also recommend using the latest version of either Google Chrome or Firefox in that you have pop-ups enabled. If you don't have an account with us today, you could head over to our website, head over to our plans page and sign up if you wanted to follow along. With that said, today we're going to be really diving deep into the analytics and AdWords aspect of call tracking metrics. So we're going to be looking at setting up the integrations inside of CTM. We're going to look at how that data reports inside of CTM, how that data reports inside of analytics, and then how that data translates into AdWords. We have 2 separate integrations with Google. Actually, we have 4 now, but today we're going to be focusing on our Google Analytics integration and our Google AdWords integration. The other 2 that we have is DoubleClick and a Forms integration, but we will not be covering those today. My name is Jessica Michaels. I will be your presenter. I am our Google guru and product coach here at Call Tracking Metrics. I'm proud to say I've been a member of the team for close to 4 years, and I'm really a complete analytics nerd. I find marketing optimization and strategy to be exciting, and I'm hoping to drop some knowledge and spark some excitement in all of you today. If you've ever attended any of my training before, you probably know that I like to start with a little exercise to make sure that everyone is familiar with their go-to webinar control panel. So if you can hear me, will you raise your hand? See if we have everyone hearing me. All right, I see hands going up. That's good. All right. If you can see me, my lovely picture, I kind of look unimpressed, raise your hand. All right, I see hands going up. Good, good. So it looks like everyone can both hear and see my screen. So that is good. Lastly, we have a questions panel. We're going to leave everyone's mics, except for mine, of course, on mute for the duration of the presentation today. So if you have any questions, feel free at any time to type them into the questions box, and then we'll be addressing them throughout the presentation and then during our Q&A session at the end, as well as during any breaks that we have, we'll address questions afterwards. So if you can find the questions box, tell me a little something about yourself. How about what are your weekend plans? Anything exciting? Comment and I will share. I have one person says baseball, going to the park, going to the beach, fishing, sitting by the lake, going camping with a bunch of kids. That sounds like fun. Flag football, brunch and shopping. That sounds like my type of weekend. Going to a wedding. That sounds fun. Kids' birthdays, picnic and kayaking, playing at a concert. Oh, that's cool. Sounds like you're in a band. And working at a concert as a fundraiser. Very good. Reading Google AdWords for Dummies. Let me know how that goes. Somebody put beer, awesome. Zoo and yep, okay, very good. Looks like everyone is able to find our questions box. So we are in good shape to begin the day. My lovely weekend plans, I think, is yard work, so not too exciting there. Also, if you've ever attended my classes, you probably know that I like to do a fair amount of polls. So here's our first poll for the day. Pop quiz, what was the first ever Google Doodle? Was it a binary code for Google, a bouncing beach ball, a Burning Man stick figure, a sketch of Mount Rushmore, or a lava lamp? You could always Google the answer because that's how I came up with the question, but it's more fun to guess. Give everyone just a second. See how everyone knows their Google knowledge. There's going to be other Google questions today, so. All right, looks like almost everyone's voted, so let's take a look. Okay, looks pretty evenly divided across the board. Looks like most people thought it was a bouncing beach ball. 22% thought the binary code for Google. 19% thought the sketch for Mount Rushmore, and 19% thought a lava lamp, while the minority is actually correct. It is a Burning Man sketch figure. That was actually the first ever Google Doodle. So now everyone's already learned something today. So that's pretty good. All right, I think I have another fun one for today. Let me hide that. I got two other ones. So we are Google themed today. So the first Google computer storage was built with what? Was it a popsicle stick, Legos, duct tape, bubblegum, or hopes and dreams? All right, we'll give another second. All right, looks like everyone has just about voted, so let's take a look. Yep. So looks like the least people thought bubblegum, which was incorrect. After that, popsicle sticks. The most people thought hopes and dreams, probably, but the actual answer was Legos. So that is another fun one. And then here is our last one before we get started. Today is National Running Day. What have you run? Select all that applies. We have a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a full marathon, or a triathlon. Do we have any athletes represented today? All right, looks like just about everyone has voted. So let's go ahead and take a look. So it looks like a good majority of us have done a 5K. 32% have done a 10K. 16% have done a half marathon. Oh, we don't have any full marathon people with us today. And we have 11% that have done a triathlon. Well, awesome. Good stuff. Just for fun, I pulled a few pictures. The most that I've done is a half marathon, but I actually prefer to do the mud runs. I find them a lot more fun. So here's a mud run that I did. I think that was Warrior Dash. And this was the half marathon that I did, which was the rock and roll one in Savannah. So that was a good time. So, all right, let's go ahead and begin the presentation for today. All right. So the first thing we're going to be doing is distinguishing between the two types of paid calls. It's important to understand the difference between the two types. Here's an example of a paid search result. Here you can see that you can click on the ad and it will take you to a landing page, which would look something like this. Or if we come back, we could click the phone number here, and if we were to click that, it would bring us to something like this. So the big difference between the two, if you click to a landing page, what's going to happen is that on that landing page, the call tracking metrics tracking script will be present, as well as the Google Analytics tracking script. Now for a click to call, in this case, they're not going to be directed to a website, so the call tracking metrics tracking script won't be on the page, and neither will Google Analytics tracking script. So when you click to a landing page, that's actually an online source, while if you click to dial, that's technically an offline source, and because of that, we have to have two separate integrations in order to capture that campaign data. So to help explain that a little further, I have a video. I played this in the first on the first day, but it's very relevant today, so we're going to revisit it.
Welcome to Call Tracking Metrics training video. In this workshop, we're going to be covering the setup of call tracking metrics integration with Google Analytics and AdWords. Before you begin, you must have user access to Google Analytics, admin access to call tracking metrics. You must be using the same email address to log into both systems. The call tracking metrics tracking script should be installed on your website. The Google Analytics tracking script should also be installed on your website. Google Analytics and Google AdWords should be synced and communicating. Lastly, auto tagging needs to be enabled in AdWords. Call Tracking Metrics has two integrations for the two types of Google paid calls, Google Analytics and Google AdWords. The AdWords integrations tracks calls from click-to-call ads and call extensions, while the Analytics integrations tracks and attributes data for click-to-landing pages. When performing a search, it's common for ads to have multiple call to actions, like displaying a phone number to call or a link to click. When you click to the landing page, there will be a GCLID in the URL. This is Google's paid click identifier. It essentially acts as a unique receipt numbers for paid clicks. When you click to a landing page, Call Tracking Metrics tracking script is present, as well as Google Analytics tracking script. The two softwares match sessions data and share session data. While for click-to-call, Google AdWords uses a Google forwarding number, which forwards to a call tracking number, and the two systems match and pass data. Two types of paid calls, both reporting as conversions in AdWords.
Okay, so that really breaks down why we have two different integrations. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch into the test account that we've been building out throughout the week. If you are joining us for the first time today, welcome. What we've done over the past 2 days is we've been building out an account, and we're just kind of adding on to it a little bit every day. So today what we're going to be doing is adding a few new tracking numbers. If we come visit what we have, we already have one set up for Google AdWords, but let's real quick just review that setup to make sure everyone is on the same page. So if we come to our tracking sources, here's for Google AdWords. So that is from a preset. We have, I think there's about 15 or 20 preset tracking sources for you. So what a preset is it's really just pre-configured. So we do all the work for you. So all you have to do is select it, and then it will auto-populate these fields. So for Google AdWords, this would obviously be an online source. And we're going to swap for this number based on the landing page. And we're going to be looking for the GCLID. Now what that is if you have auto tagging enabled, which is one of the requirements that the video mentioned, every time there's a paid click, there's going to be a unique GCLID that is going to be added into the landing page URL that's going to act as a receipt number. So what we're going to do is be able to capture that and then send that GCLID into analytics, and then analytics is going to match that to the paid click in AdWords, and then we're going to be able to capture all of that campaign data. So that is how this tracking source works. With AdWords, we would recommend having this in position 1 unless you're doing unique campaign tracking, which just means that we're going to look for this first. So if you had any other sources like Google Organic, we're going to check for AdWords first, and then we'll look at to see if this was an organic referral later. So that is our Google AdWords tracking number. What we're going to need to do is come in and purchase a new number. Us here at Call Tracking Metrics, we're located in Serna Park, Maryland, so I like to search for Maryland numbers. I'm not feeling too picky. Annapolis looks good, so I'll purchase and configure my number. Configure. So I'll come over, put my receiving number in. Now, even though I didn't create a tracking source for this, because Ad Extension is a preset, it's going to show up in my dropdown. So it makes it really easy for us to do. So I'll add that. I always like to label my tracking numbers just to keep things clean. There we go. And this is an offline source, so we don't need a target number. So I can hit save and continue. Now, anytime you add a new tracking number, you want to be sure to add it to your call settings. After you configure it, it's going to by default ask you to come here. So I'll just go ahead and click that over, and we're good to go. All right. So let's head over to the integrations. So to get to our integrations, we're going to come to our settings tab, and we're going to jump over here to integrations. And then here are our different Google integrations. So we've just added the double click. Hopefully we'll be able to do training on that soon. We're just not at that point yet. We have AdWords, we have analytics, and we have forms. Today we're going to be focusing on these two, starting with analytics. So let's go ahead and come in here. Now, when you are not integrated yet, it's going to look something similar to this. Because I'm on an agency account, it's going to look at other accounts that I have. So I'm just going to go ahead and say link my account. It's going to ask me for a user. So when you're selecting which account you're going to link it to, you want to make sure you select the user that has access to the analytics property you want to be sending the events into. So I can go ahead and click myself here. I'm going to allow it to send data. All right, and now that I am linked, it's going to give me a list of all the various properties I have access to, which I have a whole bunch. So I want to make sure that I'm sending it into the proper one. So I'm going to send this into one of these university ones. I'll just say, what is this one? 15, sure. Say use property. And you're not successfully linked until you hit this page. I've seen people that have come to the select page and they think that they're linked, but you actually have to say use this property, and then once all the toggles appear, that's when you know that you have been successfully linked to analytics. Okay, so by default, when you first link your account, the first two toggles are going to be enabled. The first one is simply allowing call tracking metrics to send events into Google Analytics. And we're going to send an event into Analytics for every inbound call, text, or form submission. The second one is going to allow us to do that even if it's an offline source. So if you're doing a lot of offline advertising and you're tracking the calls and you don't want to send that data into Analytics, you could simply toggle this off. And then we won't send any offline events from your calls into analytics. I'm going to leave it on. And then if we are doing that, we're going to give you the option to send an initial page view. So then it's just going to create a fake view to match the call to. So it'll be your website/phone calls. So we'll go ahead and enable that. So the third option we have here is to send conversion events into analytics. So by default, we're going to send an event for every inbound call, text, or form. But if we actually hop over here to the call log, I'll explain this. If you're scoring a call and marking it as converted, we can send a separate event into analytics, and that would be a call sale event. So this is really cool because it gives you a great way to measure your call leads versus your call sales. And these can actually go back and be entered at any time. So it doesn't have to be as the call is live. We have a lot of our clients who go back maybe every Friday and go through and mark all their calls that converted into sales. And then you're able to view, your leads versus sales. And as we send these events into analytics, our regular call events, the value of those events are going to be seconds of talk time, while if we're doing the call sale ones, the value of the event will be the actual conversion amount that is entered here. So in this case, if I entered $55 and hit save, that's going to send a call sale event into analytics with the event value being 55. Now that probably did not happen because I don't think I toggled it first. Yep, so I'd have to enable this. There we go. For the next one, I actually have another video which helps explain it. So let's real quick jump back to the slide deck and watch the video.
Meet Ken. Ken is going to help explain how the fourth toggle inside the call tracking metrics integration with Google Analytics helps his business. Ken is a man of many trades and owns 3 separate businesses. He's a plumber, a builder, and a videographer. He has a separate website for each of his services and is tracking them with separate Google Analytics profiles. Even though he has 3 separate businesses, all of them ring directly to his cell phone. Call tracking metrics allows Ken to have unique tracking numbers on each of his websites, so he can identify the service a caller is interested in and the analytics property tracking the visits. Call tracking metrics allows Ken to be extra prepared for every call by playing a whisper message announcing which service and promotion the caller is interested in. Call tracking metrics will identify the Google Analytics profile on the web page and send the event into that profile, even if it's different from the profile connecting CTM and analytics. If an analytics property isn't discovered on the page, the event will default into the analytics profiles that's linked to CTM. This is extremely helpful for small businesses who want to use one call tracking metrics account but send events into multiple Google Analytics accounts.
All right. So just a quick recap. So this fourth toggle here, what it's going to do is it's going to recognize the web property on the landing page. And then rather than sending by default the property or the event into this property, if it recognizes a different one, it's going to send it into the property that we recognize on the page. Just so that there's no confusion, we're not going to send duplicate events. Rather than sending it to the one account, we're going to send it to the other. So this is really handy, like in the example for a small business. Now, if you're in a larger business and you're sending to, 5, 10, 15, 20 different properties, in that case, I would recommend, upgrading to our marketing plan or our contact center plan and having them each have their own sub-account. Because it's going to make your reporting really difficult if we're sending the events into, so many different places. So it'll just make troubleshooting a little bit difficult. So I think this is a really great option for small businesses, but I would recommend not using it if you're going to be sending it to multiple different or several different properties. All right, so the next one that we have is to send the event categorized by activity type. Now this is actually something pretty new, and I think it's pretty awesome. See, by default, we used to send all the calls, texts, and forms into analytics under the category of calls. But that can be confusing because then your texts and forms are being categorized as calls. It just kind of has to do with the evolution of our product. We started with calls and then we started adding things. But now we give you the ability to categorize the event by activity. So rather than all of them going in as calls, inbound calls will go in as inbound calls, text will go in as inbound messages, and then forms will, of course, go in as forms. So I'm actually a big fan of this, so I recommend enabling that. This one is actually pretty new as well, which is to automatically associate cost data from Google Analytics to each activity. So what's pretty cool with this is I could come in and say my Google AdWords source and then say configure. So it'll just take a minute, but what it will do is anytime I have a Google AdWords or call generated from Google AdWords, it'll actually be able to tell me how much that click cost that generated the call. So, and then that will feed into our ROI reports. So if you're using this as well as scoring the calls with conversions amounts, you'll be able to generate some true ROI reports, which is pretty powerful. So I will go ahead and save my configuration here. And then if we scroll to the bottom, we do have some troubleshooting tools. One is just to refresh what we have linked to make sure that we still have access to these properties. The second one is to check to make sure that analytics and AdWords are connected. So this actually detects an issue with it. It says that no web properties associated with analytics have access to AdWords data. So that means I need to go into my analytics and make sure that I am connected to AdWords. Because if AdWords and analytics aren't connected, I'm not going to be able to get campaign information. And then, of course, I could check to see if I'm linked to analytics. And here it looks like everything's good. A lot of times when you're running this check, it'll show you any filters that you have set up in analytics. Now, depending on how those filters are configured, they can prevent us from sending our call events into analytics. So an example that I've run into before is we had one client who set up a filter. He meant to block out his company's IP address, but he entered it wrong and he actually ended up blocking out the entire state of South Carolina. So any calls that came in from South Carolina ended up being blocked by that filter. So this can be a nice check to see if you're getting spotty events reporting. It'll let you know if there's any filters that could be preventing that from going in. Yep. Okay, now before we jump into analytics, I'm actually going to jump into my demo account to show you how the campaign data will report inside of call tracking metrics. So let me actually just switch this off. That one too. Oh, this one. Here we go. So now here we can see we have some calls that came in from Google AdWords. Now, right here, this is going to tell us the landing page that the caller came in on. This is going to tell us the referring website, and this is going to tell us the keyword searched. Right here, it's going to tell us the visitor likelihood. So that's telling us how likely of a match this website session is to this caller. So when we're talking about Google AdWords, we really want this to be a high percentage because we want to optimize our campaigns. We're going to be, sending conversions into AdWords. So we really want to make sure we have the proper session. Now, if we click anywhere in this box, it'll expand to show us our session data. Now, right here, it's going to show us the property that we recognize on the page. So, and right here, if we hover over this link icon, it's going to show us the analytics property where we sent the event, which we can see matches the one on the page, so that's good. It's also going to tell us the category of the event that we sent into analytics. So in this case, it was an inbound call. Now, as the call comes in, we're not going to have this campaign data. This is going to come in delayed. So when the call first comes in, we're going to be able to tell you the referring site and the landing page. And then after the call is completed, we're going to send the event into analytics. And then we're going to ask analytics, hey, we tracked this session. Did you track this session, and do you have any additional information to pass us? So what they do is they match sessions, and then analytics is going to pass us this campaign data. So this typically comes in delayed. It can come in delayed between 5 and 20 minutes, I would say on average. Some days it comes in a little slower. It's really just, I can't find a rhythm or rhyme to it. It's just Google time. I've seen it come in delayed as up to several hours. I wouldn't say that's as common. I like to say practice patience with this. If it's been over 24 hours, then something's definitely not set up properly. If it's been 1 hour and it hasn't come in, I'd say, give it a couple more hours and we'll go from there. Let's see, some other great things we have here is we have our check analytics button here. So this is another great troubleshooting tool. This is going to see if we sent anything into analytics, and it's just going to mirror it to us. So I can see that we did send events and that we sent, inbound call as a category, and we sent it into this property. And then it's going to tell us a little bit about the events. We can see that the source and medium was Google and CPC. The event action is Google AdWords. The category is inbound call. The event and label is going to be Google AdWords. This is going to be the tracking number that was dialed itself, whether or not this was a first time or repeat caller, and then the unique call ID. And here we have the event value. Now for this call, the event value is going to be seconds of talk time. Now if we come down to this other event, this is a call sale event. And in this case, the value is 99. That's going to be the scored amount. So that's pretty cool. So we can actually see that that call was scored for $99. So we sent the additional call sale event. So that is the analytics side of the visitor detail. Before we jump into analytics, I have one more video for you that's going to be explaining what the events and analytics are going to look like. So enjoy.
Welcome to Call Tracking Metrics training video. In this workshop, we're going to be covering how Call Tracking Metrics sends events into Google Analytics. Call Tracking Metrics sends events into Google Analytics for every inbound call, text, and form. An event in Google Analytics can be broken up into 4 main components: category, action, label, value. By default, the category will be calls. Inside of CTM, there are several different ways to customize the category of an event. The action will always be equal to the name of the tracking source. The label is made of 4 parts. The label of the tracking number. If the tracking number isn't labeled, it will report as not set. Next is the tracking number that was dialed, followed by whether or not this was a first-time or repeat caller. Lastly, the unique call identification number. By default, the value refers to seconds of talk time. If you have call conversion events enabled, the value will be the entered conversion amount. Commonly, the category will be calls. The action will always match the tracking source. Here's an example of how a call sale event would report in Google Analytics. Here's another example of how an event could report in Analytics. To view the events in Analytics, select the Behaviors tab. From the Behaviors tab drop-down, select Events, Events Overview. The Event Overview will display your top-performing events in Analytics. Hopefully these terms are starting to look familiar. Category, action, and label. If you click into the calls category, it will display the total number of reported calls. From here, you can select the action. The action will display your calls broken out by tracking source. If you click into one of the event action, it will bring you to the label view for just that tracking source. The label will display the 4 components of the event label. These are the basic fields of an event in Google Analytics. However, if you want to view additional information, you can do that by adding secondary dimensions to your report in Analytics. I would recommend viewing this data under the label view. Remember that an event is not a conversion. To set up a call conversion, you'll need to create a goal in Analytics. Thanks for watching.
All right, so that kind of laid the foundation for what we're going to be covering now. So again, we do send the calls into Analytics as events. To find events, you want to go to your Behaviors tab and then scroll down to Events, and we have Event Overview. Now here's a couple of the different ones that we can do. If we had just regular calls coming in, and then at one point we enabled the toggle so that it does inbound call and form as well as messages. And we have the call sale enabled as well. So these are all the different categories of events that we're sending into Analytics. So let's go ahead and look at inbound calls. So if we click into this, this is going to give us a really high-level overview of our calls for the time frame selected. So this is going to say that we've just had 7 total calls, that the total event value is 85, and that the average value is 12. Now this is going to be seconds of talk time. So this is saying that our average conversation is 12 seconds long, which this is a demo account. So this is far below average. So if we come over here and we click into our event action, this is going to break down our calls by tracking source. So in this case, we just have Google AdWords. And if we click into this, it's going to break it down to the label view. So the label is made up of 4 parts. One is going to be the label of the tracking number itself. So to actually explain that a little better, I'm going to jump back over here, go to our numbers, tracking numbers tab. And that's strictly looking at the label of the tracking number right here. So in this case, it's Facebook, Twitter, Google Organic, website, ad extension, and so on. So if you see not set, which is a common question that we have for the event label, all that means is that you didn't label your tracking number. So the next part is a tracking number that was dialed itself, whether or not this was a first time or repeat caller, and this is the unique call ID. Now what's pretty cool about this is if you wanted to compare apples to apples, I could actually grab this number here, copy it, head over to my call log, could paste it into the search bar, and it's going to bring up that that call that took place. So I can see that the audio is 32 seconds long. If I was in question of it, I could see that the value is 32 seconds, so everything seems to be lining up properly. Now, this is really the 4 pieces of an event. There's going to be a category, an action, a label, and a value, but there's lots of other information that is attached to that that's kind of hidden. If we wanted to surface it, we could do a secondary dimension. So a common one would be source and medium. For this case, it should be Google and CPC. I don't know what happened here. We weren't able to get any campaign information. If I thought this looked suspicious, again, I could come up here, see why it's not. That call doesn't seem to exist, so that's why. And maybe I wanted to know something like the keyword that was actually searched. So this is our chocolate store, so I'm guessing it's all going to be chocolate related. So organic chocolate truffles, chocolate with truffles, and so on. So here's our keywords. Let's see if I wanted to know what the landing page was. I could search for that. Pretty cool. So that's where all the information lives and is viewed inside of Analytics. So if we want to go back over to our event overview, we can then look at our call sales. So these are going to be the calls in the call log that we have scored and marked as converted. So it reports almost exactly the same as the calls or inbound call events. The main difference in this case is that the event value is going to be the actual conversion dollars entered, not referencing seconds of talk time. So in this case, we can see we've had 25 scored calls, 20 unique. Now what that's going to tell me right there is that one call has been, or multiple calls have been scored more than once. So that's something you might want to watch for, which is a fairly common occurrence. It's when a call has been marked as converted with an amount, and then somebody goes in and updates that amount. So maybe the person purchased something else, so the value went up. But when you trigger the new amount, it's going to stack it. So if this was originally, $50, and then they bought something else, so I updated it to $99. It's not going to add $49. It's going to add $99. So then in that case, it would be $149. So you might just want to be careful for that. So then if we click into the event action, the action is equal to the tracking source. So we can see we had 15 conversions from Google AdWords, 6 from Twitter, 2 from organic, and then 2 from a source called purchase. And then again, if I wanted to click in and see more information, I could do that and add in things like my keyword. Yep. And then I can see the keywords that were searched. This little star icon is because this is a shopping campaign, so they don't always have keywords searched. And then the event value, of course, this is going to be the total amount converted, and this is going to be your average sale amount for our chocolate store. So that is the events, but of course our goal is to get this into AdWords to count as conversions. So to do that, there's a few things we need to do. And to do so, we need to head over to our admin panel. One of the first ones we need to do is make sure that we're linked to AdWords and Analytics are linked and communicating. So I can check this. It does say we're linked, so that's good. Let's go back. So the next thing we're going to need to do is create a goal. Now I already have some goals configured, so I'll go ahead and make a new one. Now not everyone gets this template. I think the A/B test, so if you come here and don't see this, don't worry, we're just going to hit custom anyways and then continue. I'm going to make this a call sale goal. And then the type would be event because that's what we send into analytics. So let's continue. And hopefully these terms are looking very familiar. We have category, action, label, and value. Now the purpose of this one I'm going to make for my call sale events. So the category would actually be call sale. Now, one of the things you need to be careful with is that analytics can't apply human logic. So if we're saying equals to, it really has to be exactly the same as the event that we send in. So if this was all lowercase, the goal probably wouldn't complete. Actually, I know it wouldn't. So we need to make sure that we're all case sensitive. We don't have any odd spacing or spelling. Now this right here is really all we need to create a goal, and we could hit save. But these next options actually give us some opportunity to fine tune how we want this goal to complete. So in this case, the action is always equal to the tracking source. So maybe I want this goal to be only for my Google AdWords call sales. So I want to make sure it's exact caps that I have for my tracking source. Now the label is going to be referencing the label of the tracking number itself, whether or not this was a first time or repeat caller, and the unique call ID. Now because the label is made up of 4 unique parts, we can't use equals to. We're going to need to use regular expression. Now, I could do this by the tracking number, but I think the best use case for using the label is if I want this goal only to complete for first-time callers. So we just want to make sure that this is exactly how it reports in the event, which is going to be first dash call, or if I only wanted it to be for repeat callers, it would be repeat dash call. So now I have a goal built for call sales that will only complete for Google AdWords for first-time callers. And now we can do the value. Now in this case, this is going to be actual conversion dollars. So I might say, you know, I only want it to count if it's over $25. Really for a call sale, the value might not have as much quality to it as for just a typical call event. Because with a typical call event, we're going to send it in for every inbound call. So whether or not they called and hung up right away, maybe hit a voice menu, maybe it was a wrong dial, we're still going to send that event into analytics. So with the value being seconds of talk time, I could put in something like, you know, 180. And so now it's going to say only count this as a conversion if the call is over 3 minutes long. So if you think about it, if somebody has a wrong number or they're leaving a voicemail, it's probably going to be a little less than 3 minutes long. So it's a way to fine tune what you want to count as a conversion. So I'm going to leave this blank for now and make this back to call sale. Now the last little tidbit about creating a goal is this toggle here, which is use the event value as the goal value for the conversion. Now, in the case of a call sale, I think this is fantastic, absolutely, because we're talking about conversion dollars. But in the case of a regular call event, if somebody's on a call for 10 minutes, that would be 600 seconds. So does a 10-minute call directly translate to $600? Maybe, but that seems like a stretch to me. So in that case, I would recommend toggling this off, but they will require you to put in a numeric value. So if you have an average cost of a lead, you know, maybe your average lead cost is $25, you can enter that in, or you could just use a numeric value of 1. So when you see your goal completion value of 25, you know you've had 25 conversions. So there's a little bit of wiggle room on how you can customize this. You could always leave this on, but I think it creates a lot of false data. So it's up to you of how you want to configure it. On the bottom here, there's a verify this goal button. And this is going to look on past data of this last 7 days. So to see if it, now in this case, it says 0, but that's just looking at the last 7 days. So I might not have had a call sale to Google AdWords that was a first-time caller in the last 7 days. So if it says 0%, you don't have to get upset right away. It might just be that you don't have any data. If I took that off, maybe it'll change. So now it's a 10%. So I just didn't have any first-time callers. So now I will go ahead and save my goal. And now I have my call sale goal, all beautiful and ready to report. And so now that we have the goal made, our next step is going to be to import that into AdWords. So here we have AdWords, our Coco Loco site. So what we're going to want to do is go to our conversions. We're going to say we want to add a conversion. We're going to import it from Google Analytics. And this is also another reason why Analytics and AdWords need to be connected. And here it's going to show the 2 goals that I have in Analytics that I have not imported into AdWords. And here's the one that I just created. So I can go ahead and select, and then say import. And it says you've got 1 goal, okay. And boom, now my goal is imported from Analytics into AdWords. So now, quick recap at this point, as somebody clicks your ad, lands on your website, places a call, we're going to send an event into analytics with that GCL ID and the session data. Analytics is going to match that session. They're going to pass us back campaign information to report inside of the call log. And then the goal, if the call meets your goals criteria, that will count as a goal completion inside of analytics and then flow into AdWords as a conversion. So it comes full circle. Now, another thing, just to make sure we're completely clear, is that Google AdWords will not accept a goal completion from analytics unless it has that GCL ID in it, and that GCL ID matches a paid click inside of this account. So you can try to send things like Bing conversions, Facebook, Google organic into AdWords, and AdWords is just going to reject it. If it doesn't have the GCL ID that AdWords recognizes, it's just going to kick it back. So it'll count as a goal completion inside of analytics, but it won't be able to make it into AdWords as a conversion. Everyone with me so far? Raise your hand if you're still with me. I see a few hands going up. All right, good stuff. Okay. So up next, we have our analytics integration, or I'm sorry, our AdWords integration. Now this is going to be for our click-to-call ads and our ad extensions. So to set this up, we're going to go to our settings, our integrations. I'm going to jump accounts. And then we're going to come to AdWords. Here we go. You can tell we're not configured yet. There's nothing here. So the first thing we need to do is associate a tracking source. So if we click into here, it's going to identify any offline sources that we have and offer those as a selection. So we already purchased and configured our ad extension here. So we can go ahead and click this. Now the first option it's going to give us is to delay the event from being sent into analytics. So typically as a call comes in, right after it's completed, that's when we're going to send the event into analytics. Now what's different about this integration and the reason we offer the delay is that there's not live tracking scripts running. What we're going to have to do is actually install a script inside of AdWords, and then AdWords can only run that script hourly. So we'll only be able to get the campaign information at a delay of an hour. So by allowing the event to be delayed, it'll make the attribution consistent between analytics, call tracking metrics, and AdWords, which I will be elaborating on more shortly. So I'll say activate call extension. And then the next thing it's going to do is it's going to come up with this script here that we need to install inside of AdWords. So I will go ahead and copy this. And the steps that we're about to cover are also highlighted right here. Actually, all these screenshots are for the old analytic or the old AdWords, not the new. But that's fine because we're going to set it up with these new. All right, so here we are. I also wanted to point out that for auto tagging, which needs to be enabled, if you come over to your account settings and then auto tagging, you'll find right here. So you want to make sure that that is enabled. Go ahead and save that. All right. So our next thing we want to do is install our scripts. So we'll come to our little wrench icon and then go to scripts. I'm still getting used to this new interface, so I like it a lot. It just takes a little getting used to. It's thinking really hard. So when you create a new script, there's going to be by default a little bit of coding already in it. I would just highlight over it and then paste our script in. It's always nice to name it. So I want to say CTM script. It's going to ask you to authorize it, so I'll go ahead and do that. It's a pop-up. I don't think that it actually shows for you all. Maybe it does. Say allow. And then I want to save and then close. So now that I just created my script, the next thing that I have to do is actually tell it to run, because it's not going to just run by default. And the smallest time frame that they're going to allow for us is hourly. And then we hit save. And it's going to ask me to authorize again. Yep. There we go. So now I have it installed. It's set up properly. It's going to run hourly. So what did we just do? So let's step back and reflect. So what's going to happen with an add extension, let's go to our setup. Let's say add extension, extensions. Here we go. So here we have our phone number for add extension. I know that's our message extension. We'll cover that next. Call extensions. Because we don't have any, so let's set that up. So what we want to do is we want to put our phone number in. Now this is going to be our add extension from over here. So let me go to my tracking numbers. Grab this guy. Come back over, paste it in. Now this call reporting, this needs to be enabled. So what's going to happen here is that Google's forwarding number is going to replace our tracking number, so that then Google's tracking the call and we're tracking the call. So that's essentially how our workaround to getting campaign information is going to take place. So as long as Google replaces our tracking number with their forwarding number, and then the script is running, we're going to be able to pull that information from AdWords, and from that we're going to be able to get the campaign, the ad group, and the keyword associated with the call. And then in regards to the conversions, the conversion action has to take place within AdWords. You can't send the event into analytics and then have that goal import from analytics to AdWords. The reason being that with call extensions and click-to-calls, there's simply no GCLAD because they don't hit the landing page. So Google won't take any conversions without that, because that's their paid click identifier. But what they do offer is the ability to have under here it count as a conversion. So where's my option? Oh, that's right here. So count calls, or count conversion as call from ads. So that's a conversion that will actually be built inside of AdWords. So then I can go ahead and hit save. Now, a common problem that occurs with our click-to-calls and call extensions is that Google will disapprove the number, because what they do is when we make this, they're going to send their bots, as you can see it's under review, to go to our website to see if the phone numbers match, which makes sense because Google really cares about quality. So they want to make sure that this phone number is actually our phone number. But if you're using, dynamic number insertion and this is an offline source, this number won't be appearing on the website. So Google's little bots aren't going to see it. So what they're going to do is probably disapprove this number. Well, the good thing is there is a workaround. As long as you have your AdWords account linked to the Search Console, then Google's not going to they're not going to crawl your site, because if your AdWords is linked to the Search Console, they're going to say that you have authority over that web page, and so they're not going to send their bots. So linked accounts, if we wanted to check that. So we can link to all these different things, and one of them in here is the Search Console. So if I want to see the details of that, we can see that we are actively linked to our Search Console, and we were actually linked not that long ago. So because of this, Google's not going to send their bots, so they're not going to scrape our site, so they won't disapprove of our numbers. So that is Ad Extensions. So I think this is a great time to take a 10-minute break, and then after that we'll dive a little bit more into the AdWords tracking and reporting, and we'll look at text extensions, and then we'll look at call schedules, which is what we didn't get into yesterday. So let's meet back at 3:10, and we'll go from there. Okay, it is 10 past, so it is time to start again. So I did get a few questions that came in over the break that I wanted to address. And one of them is that I am on the highest account level of the contact center plan. So that can create a little bit of confusion that when I do drop downs, actually probably all of them, you might see features that aren't on your plan. I'm trying to think of a creative way we can address this other than breaking this course out into doing it in all the different plans. So that's something that we're going to have to look into further developing the Academy. So we do apologize if you see things in my account that you don't see in yours. It's probably just based on the plan. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to our support team, and they'd be happy to help troubleshoot those things. So one of the things that was mentioned is that not everyone has this automatically associate cost data. I'm not sure exactly which plans that was on. I wasn't aware that that was plan specific. So I did reach out to our engineer team to ask on that information, and I haven't heard back. So I will let you all know as soon as I have the answer to that question. Something else is people are asking for recordings of this. We do already have one recorded, and this is in our training hub. I will paste the link into our chat if you wanted to visit that. Now, this recording here is actually, I think, a lot longer than this class. This class actually used to be about 3.5 hours long, and the feedback we received is that it was just far too much to digest. So that's why we kind of tried to snip it up and make it a little bit shorter, but we do have the full long recording available in the training hub. And then this recording from today, I will have live on YouTube by tomorrow morning. So there's those little tidbits. With that said, let's start with another poll. And the question is, Google regularly employs dogs, bees, bears, goats, or vampires? This is a true question. And I recycle my questions. So if you've watched my courses before, you should be getting all of these right. All right, looks like about 50% of us have voted. All right, let's take a look at the results. Okay, a large majority of us think dogs. That was kind of a trick question because Google is a dog-friendly work environment. So you can actually bring your dog to work. That's actually a thing, but they don't employ them. So a little bit of a trick question there. It is not bees. Nobody thought bears. It is definitely not vampires. It is goats. I've actually been over in the West Coast a fair amount, and that's actually a common thing I've seen over there is that people employ goats to mow the lawn. A green initiative feeds the goats and keeps the weeds down. So true fact, they employ goats. Let's see, I think I have, oh, I got one more for you. So Google came out with a new interface probably last November or so, and they've just recently been forcing us into it. How do you feel about the new interface? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you just kind of meh about it? Just get a crowd feel for how. All right, looks like most of us have voted. Oh, it's funny. This is pretty different results than my last couple classes. So looks like the majority of us are just kind of meh about it, which I get. I get that. 5% don't like it and 10% love it. So seems like most of us are just kind of meh. Not a bad thing, just a thing. I'm starting to really like it. Take some time. I'm old school. I have a hard time handling change, but I do like the feel of it. So okay, so moving along. I wanted to switch over to our slide deck and cover our most common mistakes with our Google Analytics integration. So there are several very common mistakes. One is hard coding the tracking number on your landing pages. If you hard code the number and don't put our tracking script, we are not going to be able to attribute session data, much less campaign data. Not installing the CTM tracking script, we won't be able to tell you anything other than the fact that the call took place. If Google Analytics tracking script is not on the page, we're not going to be able to get you campaign data. We'll be able to tell you the page that they came in on in the referring site, but we're not going to be able to get that campaign information that you like. Let's see, the next one, filters and analytics. Filters and analytics, like we covered earlier, can prevent our calls from going into analytics. If our calls can't go into analytics, they can't be goal completions, and then they can't be imported into AdWords. So if you're seeing your events reporting spotty, be sure to check that analytics troubleshooting button on the bottom of the integration page and see if you have any filters that could be preventing your events from showing up. So another common one is if call tracking metrics and analytics is not fully integrated. So what does that mean? Like how I mentioned before, you actually have to select the property. We have a lot of people who get all the way to that last step where you have to select your property from the drop down, and a lot of people don't actually select a property. So make sure that you see the toggles and make sure that it shows you which analytics property we're linked to, as well as which user is connecting analytics and call tracking metrics. If the user loses access to analytics, it's a little bit of a weird world when that happens. We'll still be able to send the call events into analytics. What we won't be able to do is pull any information out of analytics. So if the user connecting the two ever loses analytics, that will half break the system. So we actually see that fairly often here. If analytics and AdWords aren't connected and communicating, we will not get campaign data. And then, of course, if there's no goals created in analytics, we won't be able to send that as a conversion into AdWords. We'll still be able to get campaign information without goals, but of course, we want those conversions. So that is our common troubleshooting. So next, let's jump back into AdWords, and we're going to talk about text message extensions. Okay, oops, switch my screen. Here we go. Okay, so we come to add extensions, then we want to go to our extensions. And then our extension type, we have message, hit apply. Now I already have one created, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. So one of the first things about Google's message extensions, one, I think they're pretty cool. What grinds my gears is that they can't count as a conversion, mainly because Google doesn't offer any type of call forwarding for a message extension. So in that case, Google has no record that it happened, thus it cannot count as a conversion. But we can still do some pretty cool things with it, and I think that call tracking metrics really pairs nicely with it. So in this case, what we have is our add extension number, and we can have an extension text. So this is our chocolate store. So we could do a message of text us for our daily specials, put our business name. And what's cool about the message extensions is that when they click it, you can actually have it auto load the message that'll be sent to your business. So it gives you a lot of control. So I pre-populated, I'd like to know what's fresh today. Please send me a link to your daily specials. So I think the real added benefit of using CTM with these is that we can set auto text responses. So if this is your business phone number and you're not using, a call tracking platform like call tracking metrics, you'll probably find that it's very difficult to do text messaging, and you'd probably have to put in maybe like your personal phone number, which would then be out on the web, which you probably would not like. So what we can do is set up text triggers to automatically respond. So let's take a look at that we already have pre-configured here. So we'll go to our triggers, and then here's one that we have. So how triggers work is, let me close this. We have different ways we can say, when do we want this trigger to take place? So this is going to be a text trigger, so it's okay just to say at the start. And then the workflow is going to be how we're going to decide when we should respond to this text message. We also want to assign it to a tracking number. We could assign it to all of our tracking numbers or a unique one. In the case of AdWords, this is a unique tracking number, so I'm going to make this trigger unique to this number, which we can see we've selected here, same number. So then we create our workflow. So I said the type is an inbound text message, which means that somebody texts us. So then what do we want to do? I want to tag the call as an AdWords SMS campaign. And then I want to reply to the caller with a message. So I have here, thank you for your interest in Coco Loco. Here's a link to our daily specials. Now what's cool is I use the URL builder to create a short link. So if somebody were to actually click this, it'll have a bunch of tags in it. And then I'll actually be able to attribute this back to a unique tracking source for our texting. And then it'll go in as Google and CPC. So let's go back to our setup. So that's going to send them to the link. And then I can also say I want to send an email to manager at Coco Loco and let them know that this text message has come in. So I could say new inbound message from AdWords, and then actually type in my message. And these are little, they're known as tokens. So if you click them, it will by default put in the date, the day, the hour, so that when this message goes out, it'll say what account it came from, what number it came from, and then fill all those in. So pretty cool. It will automate all of this for you. And then to the user, it's a really cool experience as well, because they're able to see an instant text response, and then you can direct them to a link that's extremely relevant to them. So that's a way that you can use the auto text reply to utilize the message extensions inside of AdWords. The unfortunate part is that it can't count as a conversion because AdWords simply doesn't allow that, which is just nothing we can really do about that until they start offering 40 numbers for these. So the next thing I wanted to show you is a few troubleshooting tactics or skills for inside of AdWords. To do that, I'm actually going to switch into a different account. I have several demo accounts. And then I'm going to put a filter for my ad extensions. Tracking source, here we go. Now this is what it looks like when an ad extension call first comes in. It's not going to have any campaign information, and then in the case that Google provided a forwarding number and then the script ran on the hour, then we're going to get the campaign, the ad group, as well as the keyword that led to that call. So this information is going to come in delayed, and that's why we give you the option to delay sending that event into analytics. Now, it is very common to have calls like these four that don't have any session or any campaign data associated with them. So what happened here? This is a very common question. Now, The issue is that we're only able to provide you this information if Google provides a forwarding number. So if Google simply doesn't provide you with a forwarding number, then we're going to be able to tell you that the call took place, but we're not going to be able to attribute any campaign data to that call. So I can give you a little troubleshooting tip on how to diagnose a problem like that. Go. So here's an old test account that I have. I'm still a little rusty in this new interface, so hopefully I can do this. So what we can do is we can see what did Google track. If Google tracked the call, then we should be able to attribute that to campaign data. So what we can do is go to their predefined reports, which is formulate dimensions, go to basic, and then scroll to call detail. Now it changed my dates. Now I want this to be okay, it's not going to give me anything in here. Now in this case, it's saying that, you know, Google's never tracked a call for me. So if Google's never provided a tracking number, then I wouldn't be able to see any campaign data here. When was this? Oh, you know, these were October 5th. Let me change my dates. So October 1st. Still not going to show me. It's the right account. Well, bad example here. Sometimes if I switch into the old experience, it's a little nicer to me. Go all campaigns, dimensions, view, and then call detail. And change my time frame, all time. There we go. So now we have some. So what this is telling me is that I should, so I can do some basic troubleshooting here. Now here's a call that came in on Monday, October 3rd for Monday, October 3rd at 1 o'clock. And I can see I have campaign data, so there should technically be here we go, October 3rd at 1 o'clock. So I can definitely see that Google tracked this call. So I should definitely have campaign data to associate to it. In this case, I can see that the ad group was pet tote. So if I wanted to see, it definitely matches. This one came in on the 5th. So if I were to come here and see, we have the 5th. Yep, and this one, what was the timing? Do I have 2 on the 5th? Nope, just 1. On the 5th at 4. Wrong one. So this one is the 5th at 4, and it was men's Fargo hats. So I can see that it was, and not only that, I got some more information on the campaign and the ad and the keyword as well. Now, if I look at this one, which came in on the 14th, and I see it doesn't have any session data, I would want to come here and see that Google, in fact, did not track a call on that date. So because Google didn't track that call, it wasn't able to pass me any data about that call. So it's very common that Google won't provide a tracking number. It's far more common for them to provide a tracking number on a mobile device than on a desktop. So it can depend on your clientele. If your clientele is mainly searching on desktop, you might have a lower likelihood that they'll provide you a forwarding number. I've spoke with Google about this pretty in depth, and they don't really give you a straight answer on when they'll provide you one. So it's kind of all up to them, but what we can do is troubleshoot to see if Google in fact tracked the call. So if Google is reporting a call, then we should be able to attribute that back to the campaign ad group and keyword. Now, I have seen cases like this when it says the duration is 0 seconds. So what happens is that it dialed the forwarding number, but because it was such a short time, that it didn't get a chance to connect to our tracking number. So it's basically somebody dialed and hung up real quick before the Google forwarding number connected to CTM. So with 0 seconds, that's why we're not reporting a call during that time. Which I don't believe. What was that? The 6th at 12:44. The 6th at, yeah, I don't have one during that time. So it's little ways that we can troubleshoot when this happens. Like I said, I've seen all over the place. I've seen some of our clients that get almost 100% attribution for these, which is awesome. And I've seen it as spotty as 50%, but it's really all in Google's hands because they're controlling the forwarding number. If they don't provide the forwarding number, then there's really nothing we can do to capture that. But we are able to provide you with an extra layer of information saying that these calls even took place, because according to Google, they don't know that they took place. So there is still some added value, even if you're not able to get the campaign information. So this is another good one. So lastly, one of the things that I like to show is when viewing this information, when you're looking at your conversions, it's also good to look at it with the conversion name segmented so that you know actually how many of these are reporting as calls. Because I have very commonly seen people say, you know, we're reporting 36 calls inside of AdWords, or 36 conversions, but we've only had 10 calls. How's that possible? Well, when AdWords reports on conversions, that's taking all of your conversion actions together and smushing them into one. So when looking at this data, it's definitely advised that you break it up by conversion action name so that you can actually go in and be like, oh, looks like only 8 of those calls were actually from AdWords. And then in this case, 4. So of the 36 calls, only 12 of them were actually calls, or 36 conversions, only 12 were calls from AdWords. So helps us better understand how the information is reporting. All right. Does anyone have any other questions regarding the analytics or AdWords integration, or how that information reports between the 3 systems? If you have them, go ahead and type them in. The next thing that I was going to share with you all is the creating schedules, because we didn't have time to do that yesterday. So feel free to type in any questions into the question box, and then in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cover the schedules. There we go. And then I will refer back to the questions. So to create schedules, you want to go to the Numbers tab and then Schedules. And because we don't have any that were already built, it's going to drop us right into creating one. Like most things inside of call tracking metrics, if you don't have it already built, it'll just drop you in, and that you have to name it first. So the first one I'm going to make is for business hours. We're going to set our time zone, hit save, and then add my times. Now these are pretty straightforward. You can just click which days you'd like. Now my business hours, let's say, are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I've seen a lot of people that might have their business hours end before their actual business hours end. So what it'll do is maybe cut off 10, 15 minutes before they actually close so that their agents aren't stuck on the call after hours. It's up to you, or you can have it be your exact hours. So how I have this set up right now, I have a schedule for my named business hours from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I can hit save. And then I can come back to schedules and create a new schedule. And this is going to be my after hours and add times. Now, in this case, it's not going to do a wraparound. So what I'm going to want to do is do from midnight to 9 a.m. Or I could even do 9:05 to allow my agents to get in, settle down, up to you and how you want to set that up. But then I'll need to add times for my after hours. So in this case, now I want to put in 5 p.m. to midnight. There we go. So this is what an after hours schedule will look like. It's going to have to loop around the business hours. And then I can say save schedule. And these are really useful if you're doing things like call queues and IVR menus. Another example that I like to do for schedules is a weekend one, because I might want to have a unique voicemail for, after the weekends that's going to be different than my voicemail from during the week that I'm not there. So this I might do weekend after hours. Then add times. Now these are real easy. I could just say weekends, and then I could say all day. So then I could say save. So that's as easy as it is to create schedules. And then what we can do is assign these all over the place. So what we did yesterday is we created an IVR menu. So we did our main routing, and what I wasn't able to do was to add a schedule. So it was left at always on. So now I can say my routing, I want to be only during my business hours. And then default after hours, I could have it hang up, but I probably don't want to do that. I probably want it to go to a voice menu and then say maybe voicemail. So that way after hours, it'll be routed to my voicemail rather than just hanging up. And then only during the hours that we're operating, people will hear our message. So that is one use case of schedules. And let me see if I have any questions that came in. Oh, somebody had a great question. It says, how long does it take for a call sale to be imported to AdWords? So that's a great question. And this is where things can get really tricky. So call tracking metrics reports in real time. Google Analytics and Google AdWords do not. Analytics and AdWords don't even report in the same time, so it's really confusing. So for a call sale event to be imported into AdWords could take anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 days. Typically, I'd say it's between 20 minutes and 2 hours, but really it's hard to say. And what makes it even more tricky is that when we send an event into Google Analytics, that's going to happen. Google Analytics is going to attribute that event to the time that the call took place, while Google AdWords is going to attribute that conversion to the time that the click took place. So I'll give you a little further explanation of that. So if I come to your website on Monday from an AdWords click, and then I don't purchase anything, and I come back to your website, say Friday, I'm still cookied for AdWords in that session, and on Friday I place a call, and then it results in a call sale. So that event will go into analytics on Friday as a call sale event, but the conversion will actually post date to Monday for the original click. So you're going to see a lot of discrepancy in when things are reporting between analytics and AdWords and CTM, but it really has to do with our different attribution models. So that was a really great question. Somebody's asking for the link for today's recording. I will have that on YouTube by tomorrow morning. It's still recording, so I can't give it to you now, and it takes a little bit to download. Let's see, I don't really see any other questions coming in. So if you have any other questions, type them in now and I'd be happy to address them. Okay, well, I don't see any more coming in, so thank you all for attending today. There will be a survey after this class. Feel free to fill that out. I hope to see everyone tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be going over our marketing plan features. It's very agency oriented, so we'll get into things like call queues and fun stuff like that. So with that, everyone have a fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow.